Alright, so I'm going to show you guys a trick that you can use to dodge flak really consistently, and it basically is just staggering a turn inward. So when I approach a target that you want to hit A or D key, and I just stagger my turn, so I'm just going to turn like for a second, off, second, off, second, off, second, off. And what that'll do when I'm heading this way, when I'm going to turn to the right, all the flak will predict and spawn to the left, and then I usually do that approach until I can get, around 4.5, 5, depending on the armament that you're using, until you can use the attack animation to get above or below the flak, and up until that point you can just make those small turns. Kalen, a former clan member from TNG, actually showed me this trick, and it's really helped me with the FDR, which is notoriously difficult to play. Alright, so we'll test it here versus the Holland. So you can see that all the flak is spawning to the left of my ship, and that's definitely the biggest way that you take damage in this. So I'm going to try to speed away from his AA. And if you do have to change directions, I would recommend that you make sure you slow down as you're making that outbound turn. You can see, just getting into that, I took no flak hits and hardly any damage. So now that I know where the Holland is, this is just a training room, by the way, so I'm going to go and try to strike that Conqueror. Try to at least save my boost, and I can just do a slow turn in behind them. Petro is also a flak monster, shoots out starting at 7.7 kilometers or something like that. It's kind of ridiculous. So, given the Petras there, my plan is to attack the Conqueror, and then I'm going to turn out to the right. Conqueror's A shouldn't kick in until about 6 kilometers. So you can kind of just wait and then kind of boost in and turn. So here it comes. We'll start that boosted turn. I was lucky I didn't get hit there. It's kind of crazy that ship only puts out 2 flak bubbles. So I did take a couple flak hits here. Let's see if I can slow up. And I really messed up that drop. So maybe, yeah, first game of the day. Alright, same thing. I'm going to use the turns to get out of the flak. I'm not really using my boost here, but you can see that I'm not taking any flak damage. And I can actually stay close to the Conqueror. I'm going to use the boost first. I'm going to decelerate turn, and I'll start my attack run. That's why the FDR is so unforgiving if you miss the drop. That was pretty terrible. See if I can follow up with some torp bombers. Torp bombers you really don't have to do those staggered turns for. I would recommend those staggered turns for probably the rockets and also for the dive bombers. I wouldn't really use them for... These are pretty easy. Normally when I play this, he's kind of broadside here and he doesn't have any chance to turn, but I really like where you approach them parallel and then turn in at the last second. So I'm going to just dive as soon as I get into that flak range, let the reticle get tight, and I'm going to turn. And you can actually, it's such a long thing, I can go parallel to him and then cut in at the last second and not get penalized. So all those will hit. I use the trick to turn out, well, now I'm inside the Petros, so really the only flak I'm going to take is from the Conqueror, which is dead. So wait for the flak to start spawning. I got caught by his fighter. It took most of my planes. I should have paid attention to the minimap. Dive below his flak in just a second. Get a little more lead. That was kind of a poor drop. Petra is a terrible target to try to strike, but go for some dive bombers. I got 6 hits, I got lucky. See, my carrier's in a decent position. Since this flank is clear, I'm just going to move him behind this island. Try to save my boost. Drop the plane for the heck of it. I'm probably going to go for the staggered turn. I'm going to try to approach this closer Petro. So I'm going to start changing the direction of my turn, so I slowed up to throw off the flak. I'm going to speed up and see if I can make this last second turn. I'm above the flak now. Should be enough lead. I'm going to use start turning out. I'm going to go to the left. And I'll probably recall my planes because if I go in against these flak monsters, but I'm not going to recall my planes until they're out of the flak, just because at this late of stage of the game and all the plane losses I've already had, I don't want to throw away these planes. I'll need them. Go back to Torp Strikes. I really hate using the rockets on anything that's not a battleship or something that's stationary, just because they're very, very difficult to hit. I try to use primarily the dive bombers and the torps, but next rack I'll probably have to use the fighters. I usually start out with the dive bomber or a torp bomber. Just usually dive bombers are a little bit easier to land on targets because most people are going to go bow into you, and you can drop a fighter with these two. Torps are considerably easier, so the easiest way to approach this is I'm going to do a parallel turn. Like this, and just cut in whenever the reticle gets tight. A good player would already be turning away. He didn't. Might land a few here. Didn't take much flak, so I might be able to get a second strike. I should have let a little bit more. I'll go ahead and use the boost just to get out of their flak a little bit faster. Turning. Let's see if I do these little segmented turns, all the flak should spawn to my left. Alright, I have plenty of boost. I'm going to use the island for cover. Should come into effect here in a second. Usually from 6 kilometers away you can boost in, so I'll get behind the island. I'll take a... It's a good drop. Here I could easily go with a dive bomber, but I'll show you just how bad these rockets are. One thing I've learned with these is you have to get the reticle basically on target before you can even start your attack run, otherwise it'll always wind up being short. It looks like I took out the engine on the Petro, so that is good for me. Island's going to boost up this a little bit, so I'll go ahead and start the attack run. I didn't start it until... I want to try to hit him a little bit higher, mostly deck and upper armor. Really the only way you're going to pin a Petro is the upper belt on the stern and the front, because you just don't have the pin to get his 50mm deck and the icebreaker. So mostly superstructure, if you can hit that too. I took a ton of flak there because I wasn't paying attention. Try to do some slow escapades. Starting to run. Out. Rockets are pretty decent damage for carriers. You can usually hit them for like 10 to, I would say 7 to 10k if you hit all your shots. Your dive bombers are worthless versus carriers because of their armored decks. I think you can hit parts of the Audacious on the front and stern where it has lower than 50mm plating, but I'll have to check. So here, I'm just going to throw away these planes because I know that those fighters are going to kill it. Just go anywhere on the superstructure side of the ship. So that was 20 hits for probably around 10k. So here I'd probably, you could either follow up with another rocket attack or if you had a full Actually, what I should have done is launch the rockets because I could tank the fighters if he spawned another fighter and get 2 attack runs and do some massive damage. Might as well move my carrier closer. I've noticed that a lot of the carriers have kind of short range AA, the Germans being the exception. I think the new the skip bomber, I forget the name, the Emmelman has short range AA as well. This will probably kill him soon. Turn in last second, get a better angle. And just learn all 8. Well, hopefully that's helpful for you guys. It takes a little bit of practice, but if you can use, especially with your dive bombers, you can avoid taking a ton of AA if you just are really consistent with your turns until you get into attack range, and then you kind of ignore it. But still have a lot of practice to do with the FDR. It's very difficult to play.